Has anybody else noticed all of the tension that is in the environment right now? I mean, even just beyond what you're seeing on the news and all these protests that are happening out there, I've just really noticed people being really tense, even in conversations online with each other. People just seem like they're on the border ready to fight. If you've noticed that, then this video is for you because there is a reason for that. It is the current Mars transit that is happening and has been happening since about June and will go on until about January. So I want to talk to you today about what that means, what that might mean for you, and what we can kind of expect going forward from now. So Mars has been transiting Aries since the end of June, and it's going to be in there for a really long time. And this is extremely unusual. It hasn't been in a sign this long for many, many, many years. It usually gets out of a sign pretty quickly. The reason for this is because of a Mars retrograde that is just so happens to be happening at the perfect timing for Mars to stay in Aries this entire time. And so Mars is really happy in Aries. This is actually his ruling sign, so he's really fired up and ready to fight. Now, Aries sort of has a good and a bad side. I'm sure a lot of you know Aries. Maybe you are one, and if you are, you especially know that that's true. Sort of the intense side of Aries is that they can be really combative, and they can be really fiery, but I would ultimately say that the really good side about Aries is that they really stand up for what they believe in. They are real champions for change and for causes. If you need an advocate, Aries is the best person to do it, because they will do whatever it takes to make sure that that happens and that you get what you need. So that's sort of the energy that's out there right now. And I feel like that's a lot of what we're seeing is people just ready for change and are just tired of the way things have been. And so they're ready to do what they feel like they need to do to help be the catalyst for that. And so that's a lot of what we're seeing. So I want to go over some important dates that are involved with this transit. I will list them in the description as well, so that you can look at them at your leisure. So don't feel like you need to keep up if I go too fast, but I do want to cover a few really important dates, because the thing about this transit is that as it is transiting Aries, it is actually going to make several squares to a few different planets. Now, squares are very stressful aspects that bring a lot of conflict. So we're probably going to see some conflict throughout this time. So buckle up. I hate to tell you this. I got to keep it real. It's not going to get that much easier at the end of this year. I know we've had a really rough year so far. I do think that some of the things that we've been experiencing will get easier. And I'll make a separate video about why that is. But we're definitely going to be experiencing some anger and conflict throughout this time, and not just in America, around the world. I think we've noticed that, at least I've noticed that there are protests all over the world at this point. People are really trying to fight against like authoritarian government in particular. So like I said, Mars entered Aries at the end of June. And the protest really started before that. And a lot of times you'll notice with transits, you'll start to like kind of see it cooking before it really goes. And even after the transit, kind of watch it taper off. So it's not surprising to me that it started before this, but it really ramped up in June, I feel like. Not just here, but across the world, obviously. One of the major first dates, the first square that we see is a Mars square Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is a planet that expands everything that he touches, and that for better or worse. And in this case, that can really expand sort of the explosiveness of Mars. Now, unfortunately, some of you may remember that August 4th was actually the Beirut explosion. I'm sure there were other events that were going on around the world that I haven't taken a look at, but that certainly was one of them. And so I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. because that's going to happen again. The thing, like I said, it makes so many squares throughout this process because it basically cycles through, makes the square, and then retrogrades back and makes the square again, and then goes forward and makes the square again. So there's 3 squares for every planet that it's going to hit. It's going to do it 3 times. So, like I said, that first one was August 4th. The next square that we see is actually right around when I'm filming this, right now, the 13th of August. Around that time, we see Mars square Pluto. Now, Pluto is a little bit more subversive and secretive, so I'm not sure if we'll see this in the news or not. But Pluto is definitely about power plays, power struggles, and power conflict. So when we see that square come up, I think we can assume that there is a power grab happening in some way or another. Now, all of these squares are really going to be felt probably throughout this time. These are just dates that they are exact, so they're going to be the strongest. Now, the next date that we see a square is August 27th, when we see Mars square Saturn. Now, I think that's really interesting because I feel like I've seen some talk about August 27th and something that might happen at that time. So I think it's really interesting that the square happens to be exact on that day. But Mars square Saturn would probably bring about some sort of authority that tries to hold back or limit the fighting forces. So, you know, Saturn is an authoritative planet, and he likes to limit and lead and guide and rule over. And Mars does not want to be ruled over. You Arians out there know what I'm talking about. He does not want to be told what to do. So this is not going to be a really pleasant contact, these two squaring off against each other. I'm guessing there's probably going to be some sort of moves by a government authority to try to limit people in some way. I don't know that these are all things that are going to happen in the United States or Canada, if you're from Canada, or anywhere in the UK or whatever. I'm not sure, but I think these are things that we're going to probably see sort of in general. So another date that comes up on my list is when Mars actually starts its retrograde, which is going to be September 9th. And it will be retrograde until November, so it's going to be in retrograde for a little while. And those of you that are familiar with retrogrades may know that anytime a planet is retrograde, that brings up old topics associated with the themes of that planet, and causes you to have to revise or revisit those things. And so we might see a resurgence of protests or people fighting back in some way. It might, honestly, I don't predict that a lot of the protests and things that we're seeing are going to die down. I think they might actually get a little bit more ramped up during that time because of that. It's going to bring up a lot of old angry feelings that people had at the beginning of this in, May and June. After that date, though, we start to see some of these same squares repeating because, like I said, they repeat 3 times each. And I'll link the exact dates down below, but those 3 themes are going to repeat 3 times each until the grand finale. The very last square that is going to make is really intense because it's also conjunct Uranus. Now, if you're familiar with Uranus, Uranus brings the unexpected. So expect the unexpected whenever Uranus is around, for better or worse. And in this case, I think it might be really intense because Mars is involved. And while Mars is conjunct Uranus, it makes its last and final square before finally stopping and leaving. And that's when it's going to square Jupiter, which, like I said, the last time that happened was the 4th, when we had the Beirut explosion. And the date of that last and final finale is actually January 21st, which in the US is Inauguration Day. So I don't know exactly how that's going to go down. I will say that I do think something really um, extreme and unexpected is going to happen. I don't think it's going to be a normal inauguration day. That's the feeling that I get about it. But I would love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to comment below about your predictions and what you think is going to happen. I would love to hear it. And if you liked this video, I'm going to make some more like it with predictions and things that, you know, may apply to you. I think I'll make another video on how this Mars transit might affect you based on your sign. Because I think that might be helpful. So comment below if you'd like me to make that video, and like and subscribe so you can see more. Do all that good stuff for me. Thank you.